Hey VC, Midge here, guy in a hat who loves to talk about records. Boom time. And on today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about 5 new release albums that I picked up in the month of October. There's probably more actually, but I didn't want my video to go on too long, so anything that I miss here, I'll just scoop up in November's new release list. But yeah, plenty of stuff still coming out. Also, I've been tinkering with my albums of the year list. I think I've got my 20 down now, but I always mess about with it. I used to post it on Twitter every year, and even right up to the last minute, I was swapping and changing and adding things in and taking things out. So yeah, I do agonise about it quite a bit for some bizarre reason. The album of the year list is starting to come out, so latest copy of Mojo. They've got their list in, which was really cool, to be honest. It's great when things that you like featuring music journalist lists as well. I was really pleased with the number one choice. But is it my number one? Well, you'll have to wait and see. So, yeah, great list. One that I particularly rated was really low down in the list of their list for some reason. But, you know, what do music journalists know? So, yeah, I'll be posting that in December sometime. But in the meantime, I'm going to be talking to you today about 5 albums that I picked up in October. I'm not a great reviewer, but as you'll see, but I will be honest with you. There's one in here that I will be particularly honest about, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, these are 5 albums that I picked up in October, new release-wise, that I'm going to chat to you about now. So let's get to it. So first up, we have one of the most featured bands around at the moment, and I agree with that. They're one of my favourite bands at the moment, and this is Geese, the New York band, and this is their 3rd album, Getting Killed. I first got into Geese with their 2nd album, 3D Country, which blew my mind. It's one of my favourite albums of that year. And Geese are sort of like they're quite experimental, quite off-kilter. They're a bit of a Marmite band. The frontman, Cameron Winter's got a sort of really croaky, expressive voice. Sometimes it's very deep, sometimes it's quite falsetto, and he uses it to maximum effect. But the whole band are sort of like, they're really off-kilter in their arrangements, are quite imaginative. And I think the sort of band you either really get or you really don't get. And I was trying to think of an analogy for this band, sort of describe what they sound like. And the best I could come up with was sort of like, you know, pretend your mate's got a racehorse, right? He's really proud of it. He's won a load of races, but he's going away at the weekend and he wants someone to sort of exercise it around the fields. And you think, great, because I'm a rocket launcher enthusiast and I can exercise the horse and do a bit of target practice at the same time. Now, the day arrives, you get to the field, but it's really, really muddy, and you slip and you accidentally set off the rocket launcher and it blows the horse up. Now, like any true animal lover, your first thought is, I better make good on this, I better repair the damage. So you spend the rest of the day stitching the horse back together. Your mate arrives back at the end of the day and he looks at the horse and he thinks, hang on a minute, that's not the horse I recognise. For a start, its head's on backwards. And that's sort of like Geese. It's sort of like they are the exploded horse. It's sort of like they take all the elements of classic rock, but it's not as you know it. It's not as you remember it. So it's like classic rock in a blender almost. So they're a really, really sort of cool experimental band. This album is produced by the hip hop producer Kenny Beats, which is a bit obscure for a start, because you don't usually get hip hop producers producing rock bands. So his influence is shown on this, I think, because the album is really heavily percussive. The drummer, Max Basson, it's his album really. He plays a blind on here, loads of different rhythms, loads of polyrhythms. The percussion's really up in the mix. And what's great about this album is the band sound ramshackle. It sounds like the arrangements could fall apart at any minute, but they hang together so well. And you've still got great guitarists on here, like on the track Getting Killed. And there's another one that's really cool. Yeah, 100 Horses, and it's got like sort of like a bass and guitar that riffs that duel with each other. But yeah, just an absolutely great band, Shooting for the Moon there. And when it comes to ballads as well, they're very different in terms of the ballads. And I was thinking of an analogy for what Geese's ballads sound like. And the only thing I could come up with was that, say your friend is a big giraffe enthusiast, and this giraffe loves being driven around town at weekends, but he's going away and he needs somebody to take his giraffe out. And you think, great, this is the perfect chance for me to go and explore my love of low-hanging bridges. And you get, yeah, I think you get the point. But yeah, the ballad's a bit off kilter as well. So basically, you know, you've got things like my favourite track on here, Oh Pawns Do Cocaine, which is a really great ballad, beautiful, gentle melody on the guitar, still sounds a bit ramshackle. And Cobra, that's a beautiful track on here. It's sort of like it got a really quirky melody. Sometimes it's played on guitar, sometimes it's played on like a glockenspiel or a keyboard. But yeah, really experimental band, really cool. Can't recommend them highly enough. This is the first press. I think it sold out more or less straight away because I think it was a lot more popular than people expected it to be. So I think it's currently in its second or third press, and I think they've done a different colour on each pressing. This one's on the blue vinyl. There's like a lyric insert. Obviously, and the band. Emily Green's a great guitarist, by the way. Yeah, really oblique, strange lyrics, as you would expect. There's a Bomb in My Car, which is the chorus from the first track, Trinidad. It starts off as like a slow groove, and then there's a huge burst of noise in the chorus where this is screamed out. So if you can get past the first track, there's lots of treats in store, but that might send you spinning a little bit. But the whole album does. The whole album sends you spinning. It's a great album. Really like Geese. Really like their approach to doing something a little bit different. But yeah, highly recommend this. Geese Getting Killed. Can I just say at this point, my wife is in the kitchen and she's blasting M people out. So if you hear strains of M people in the background, it's not me. You know, honestly, it's not me. I'm cooler than that, honestly. Yeah, next album. Another great album. Something that people might not be aware of, should be aware of. And I always remember when I first heard about this artist because I was on holiday quite a few years ago, in about 2017, 2018. And a friend of mine who runs a record shop phoned me up and said, I've just got a couple of records in here that are right up your alley. They're absolutely going to blow your mind. And he was right, they did. And the artist is Sven Wonder. And this is his fifth album called Daybreak. Now, if you're not aware of Sven Wonder, it's the alias of a jazz guy, really, a double bassist and TV and film composer, Joe Dannell. And this album has liner notes on it. Normally, they're sort of plain white backgrounds with the track listings on them. But he's actually revealed himself on this album. So up until then, hardly anything was known about him, apart from the fact that this guy was making really cool records. So Sven Wonder makes what you would call library records. Are heavily sort of influenced by soundtracks, easy listening, and library music. So basically, he makes albums that you would love to stumble across in charity shops, and you pick up for like 50p. You take it home and you think, oh my god, this is amazing. So if you remember the easy listening craze in the UK in the 90s, it's a sort of album that people were searching for at that time, and you'd pick up loads of cheap albums hoping you'd get an easy listening gem, but on the whole, they're pretty terrible. This is the sort of album you would love to find in a charity shop. Just soaring strings, all instrumental, beautifully composed. It has that really cool sort of plucked bass sound that a lot of these albums had in the 60s and 70s. And it's just the great drum breaks, really high up in the mix. The sort of albums that, you know, hip-hop artists would love to stumble on, and more of that in a minute. But this is his latest, like I say, it's his fifth album, and it just gets better and better. I mean, obviously he's doing quite well, because I think on this one he's actually got a symphony orchestra on it. Yeah, Stockholm Studio Orchestra. He's from Stockholm, by the way. and 20-piece orchestra to do the string arrangements on here. So yeah, it's just, I can't recommend it highly enough. If you love David Axelrod's albums of the 60s and 70s and his approach to making instrumental music, you'll absolutely love this. It's in the same sort of vein. Hip-hop artists love this. It has actually been sampled by a lot of hip-hop artists because it's got that great upfront drum sound, bass sounds. It's just, you know, he's worked with a lot of people. In fact, I think he produced a track on the last Danny Brown album, which surprised me, but it shouldn't do really, because he's just perfect fodder for hip-hop artists. So it's the sort of albums they love to stumble across and sample, and they have actually sampled some of these albums with them being brand new. So, and he has worked with a lot of hip-hop artists recently. So yeah, this is his 5th album. It's sort of like, it's just such a cool sound. There's lots of Fender Rhodes sounding keyboards and lots of atmosphere, and it's just beautifully melodic. Like I say, lots of gorgeous string arrangements. So yeah, I can't recommend this highly enough. If you've never checked out Sven Wonder before, you know, he's made loads of great albums, but this is really good, really good. And I think it's the first album he's made for a couple of years, so it's great to see him back. But if you love David Axelrod, you love easy listening, you love library records, check this out. Absolutely awesome. That's Sven Wonder and Daybreak. Okay, next up is a band that's just released their debut album. I heard one of their songs on YouTube, funnily enough, and sounded really cool, and I thought, and then funnily enough, the next week they announced the debut album, so I thought, I must check that out, and I've been really enjoying it, to be fair. And it's a Brighton band, and they're called Youth Sector, and like I said, this is their debut album, Pop Couture, which basically means ready-made pop, I think, so, or handmade pop, or, you know, stylish pop. So yeah, I've been racking my brains when I knew I was going to talk about this album, because every time I listen to this album they remind me of another band, but I can't for the life of me remember what that band is. So they're a 5-piece band. There's a keyboardist, bassist, drummer, guitarist, singer. They're great. They make sort of like really upbeat, catchy. Obviously, it's like indie pop, but it's got like a great groove to it. The bassist in particular, his bass lines are amazing. There's some of the funkiest bass lines you'll ever hear, and it make like a funk bass guitarist jealous. It's just such a groove to them, and there's great keyboard textures. All the songs are really upbeat. They've got really catchy choruses, and a lot of the subject matter, the lyrics are quite wry and sort of like humour, a lot of sort of dry humour in them, talking about the state of the world today. But the actual music is so uplifting. It's sort of like the sort of music almost you'd hear in a club. So it's not a downbeat album at all. It's really upbeat, and like I said, the choruses are really catchy. The songs are really bouncy. It's sort of like a bit like Franz Ferdinand, but a lot more up. It's sort of like they've got that fusion of sort of like guitar, indie pop, and sort of like funk and sort of, you know, danceable grooves, that sort of thing. So yeah, I've been really impressed with this. I'd really recommend checking it out. There's lots of great tracks on here. Like I said, The Ball was the one that I heard first, but you know, each one's got like a really catchy chorus. House Proud and Bedbound's a great groovy number. Prime Time's another great song. Yeah, just an absolutely great album. I've really been enjoying this, and it's like songs that have upbeat horn sections and stuff, and it's like a really uplifting album. So for a debut album, I mean, I've not heard anybody else talk about this band, but yeah, I've been really enjoying this. This is one of the Dinked edition limited 300 copy versions of the album. It's got an insert in it where you can make your own Youth Sector band. I'm not sure if I'll do that, but you know, it's cool to have. It comes in a die cut inner with all the lyrics on it, and there's some great funny lyric writing in here. And it comes on a split coloured vinyl, a bit like the shirts they wear on the front cover. And also, what I thought was pretty cool with this edition is it's got like an outer sleeve. Oh, I'm still here. It's got an outer sleeve on it, which you can slide on and off, which also features the funky shirts they wear. So I'll just put it in there for you. So yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. Nice packaging. But yeah, you're looking for something a bit indie orientated and a bit dancey and a bit funky and catchy, then yeah, the Youth Sector, recommend that. So yeah, cool. The next band is one that I've been aware of for a while, but I've never checked out an album. I've heard bits and bobs, but I've never checked them out. But one of the members produced the new Stereolab album this year, so, and they also had an album out this year, so I thought I'd check it out. And it's the Bitchin' Bahas, who are like an electronica type band, and like I say, the one of the members, Cooper Crane, produced the Stereolab album this year, which was really cool. This is their latest album. It's only got 4 tracks on it, and they sort of do sort of really chilled out melodic electronica. And also, as you know, I'm a big fan of electronic albums, so yeah, I'm not sure what number album this is. They've made quite a few. They usually have quite a psychedelic touch in their music, but this one's a bit more laid back and chilled. It's got a side-long track on it called Grout, which is really cool. It's about 18 minutes long. It starts off with a sort of like an ambient type intro that gently drifts, then a beat comes in, and then it's just layers of electronic patterns that sort of morph and sort of rest on top of each other, and it does really hold your attention. It's a really sort of cool, dreamy type feel to the whole track. And like I say, it's 18 minutes long, but it sort of gently morphs and shifts as it goes along, so it's quite subtle in how it builds and things, but it's got like a really floaty, daydreamy type feel to it. And like I say, it's only got 4 tracks, but they are quite lengthy. Another favourite is Skylarking. It's got like a really cool deep bass line, and a sort of computer voice comes in and does like a little refrain, which is quite quirky and quite cool. And Reno's probably my favourite track on it. It's got like a really cool, sort of gentle, beautifully melodic piano melody that runs all the way through it, and it's repeated. And there's also, strangely enough, for an electronica album, there's a lot of sax on this as well, but it does really work. And Reno's a good example of that. The sax comes in, it sort of replicates the piano melody. And it's a whole album of just cool, chilled out electronica. It's sort of really dreamy, really melodic, just really drifting. Yeah, so that I've been enjoying that. I'm glad I picked it up. It comes in one of those really glossy, horrible inner sleeves that are really thin, and you just know that the record is going to start poking through the sides of it. But I'm not going to hold that against them. And what I like about this album is all the credits and stuff are on the labels, which is quite unusual. But yeah, if you like electronica, and if you don't like your glossy sleeves, that's just something to put up with. But yeah, on the whole, great album. So that's Bitchin' Bahas and Inland Sea. Lastly, another one of my favourite artists released a new album in October, and that was Tame Impala. And this is his latest album, Deadbeat. Now, this was released to universally bad reviews, and I was curious to hear it because Tame Impala, like I say, has been one of my favourite acts over the years. Just does a great sort of psychedelic sound, lots of washes of sound. I mean, Kevin Parker's a one-man band, but the way he builds his music and layers it is just incredible. And the first 2 or 3 Tame Impala albums are superb. I mean, he has been moving away from that psychedelic sound for a while now, and he has become gradually more poppy, and I don't have a problem with that, although I do love the psychedelic sound, which has now more or less vanished. But, you know, he is changing his sound. He is sort of like becoming a more poppy. He has produced a few pop artists in the last couple of years. But this album, I sort of get why it has not great reviews. It's a strange album. For a start, it's very stripped back. It's sort of like it's beat heavy, which you would expect, but it's, you know, all the sort of elements that make Tame Impala albums have sort of vanished. And in the interviews on the build-up to this album, Kevin Parker was saying that he'd not really done much in the last, I think it's been 5 years since he's made an album. But he got really into techno, and he was trying to make a techno album. Now you get the impression that somewhere along the way these record companies stepped in and said, yeah, this is great, Kevin, but can you sort of make it into a Tame Impala album, which is what he's tried to do. I think the original concept was for him to release a techno album under a pseudonym and not tell anybody, but this does feel like a techno album that's been sort of tried to cram in being a Tame Impala album. So like some tracks you get the impression it's like they have techno beats. I mean, there's an 8-minute track on here called Ethereal Connection, which is like a great techno beat heavy track, but you feel like the lyrics have been bolted on. It doesn't really fit, even though it's the track itself is quite cool. And it starts off really well. My Old Ways is a great introduction. It has like a really jaunty piano type loop that builds and builds. That's a great track. And you've got Dracula, which was one of the singles, which is like the Tame Impala of old, but with more of a poppy sort of twist on it. But that's a great song as well. And Loser, with its repetitive riff and it's catchy pop. But it does go downhill from there. I mean, in the middle, there's some really, really forgettable songs. And I think that is the problem with this album. The songs aren't strong enough to be stripped back to the point that they are. I mean, the great thing about Tame Impala is that the songs are great. They were just built on layers and layers of keyboard and guitar and psychedelic effects. And this is all stripped back, and it's sort of represented by the cover as well. I mean, Tame Impala records are always like, they sound that they made in Technicolor, and the artwork usually represents that. But you've got a black and white picture of his daughter, which although is sweet, it's sort of like, you know, it represents the album. It's like a Tame Impala with all the colour sucked out of it. And also, I'm not really sure about calling an album Deadbeat that has that has your daughter on the cover, but you know, that's just me. But yeah, I have to say it's disappointing. It is really disappointing, which is a shame because it's, you know, I love Tame Impala, and you know, it's all right changing your sound and stuff, but it's, you know, it's the songs on here aren't strong enough to be stripped back to the point that they are. Is my sort of general criticism of it. But there are some good tracks on here, and you know, it's all right experimenting and stuff, but the music isn't strong enough either in parts. Like I said, there's some songs that you just know were bound for that techno album he wanted to make, but this sort of persuaded him to make them into Tame Impala songs. But it's a shame. The packaging of the album is brilliant. It's sort of like it has a die cut in the middle for some reason. There's Kevin Parker having a squirt in the bushes, and it comes on a Coke bottle coloured vinyl. Moody black and white pictures again. It comes with a great booklet with the lyrics on and great pictures of Kevin. So yeah, it's great, and a lot of he's very honest about the person he is. A lot of the lyrics on the album are very sort of like reflective, and to be honest with you, you know, I can identify with a lot of them, you know, about being socially awkward and you know, being the sort of individual that doesn't really fit in anywhere, and you know, that, so they are quite empathetic. You know, you can sort of like see where he's coming from, and you know, he's very, very honest in the song lyrics that he talks about, but it just doesn't work overall to me. It just doesn't. It doesn't feel like a Tame Impala album. So yeah, a bit of a disappointment, to be honest with you. So I'm not saying it's as bad as all the reviews say it is, but it's not great either. So unfortunately, the last album in this list is a bit of a disappointment. But you know, there are moments here, but just not many. And I don't think he'll ever go back to his psychedelic sound, which is a shame. But it'd be interesting to see where he goes next after this album. But we'll see. So that's it. So if you got this far, thanks for watching. Hope there's something there that you like and would like to investigate. And my next video will hopefully be a collection of the finds that I've been listening to over the last couple of months. And then, yeah, you end of year lists and things like that. So, yeah, plenty on the horizon, hopefully. And I'll see you on the next one. Midge out.